And since we've got the whole house and we've got our big celebrity, let me not waste any more time and introduce Dr. Devi. Dr. Devi really doesn't need an introduction, but I'll do it anyway. A dear friend, somebody I've shared enormous amounts of time with on multiple ecosystems, a person who I think has fundamentally just changed a lot of the world, because I think before Devi came in, people used to hear about this one story about Arvind Eye Care doing something in the world of McDonald's for healthcare. And Devi is a cardiac surgeon, but just a great philanthropist and an outstanding human being, and somebody I hold in great personal value, because you learn a lot from a person who's an entrepreneur who thinks 5 levels deeper. And that's what Devi is. I mean, he's done record number of heart surgeries. I think it's over 15,000. So this is a person who's operated on Mother Teresa. He's won pretty much every award in India, outside the BC Roy, the Padmas. This is a person who's got international status. He's the ET Entrepreneur of the Year. So across multiple systems, Devi is a person who moves the world and makes it a better place. And with that, let me pass the mic on to Devi, please.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much for a great introduction. I would like to first ask a question to everyone. If you are asked to change or bring in one thing, what you would do to make healthcare safer, accessible, and affordable to 80% of the world's population, what is that one thing? I strongly believe one thing, that's one thing, if you do it, you can make healthcare affordable to everyone, is removing the pen and paper from the hands of doctors, nurses, and medical technicians, and giving them a digital tool which they love to use. That will definitely make healthcare safer for the patient. I strongly believe that within the next 5 years, smart software will make much smarter diagnosis than doctors. And within 10 years, or maybe even 5 to 7 years time, it will become legally mandatory for the doctors to get the second opinion from the software before starting the treatment. This is going to happen whether we like it or not. Why I am so confident that this transformation will happen? It's mainly because as doctors, when we make diagnosis, every data set coming in for the doctor to make diagnosis is finite. It is not infinite. In the mind of the doctor, at any given time, there will not be more than 2,500 to 3,000 diseases which they can diagnose in a clinical setting. And they diagnose the problem with listening to the patient's history. This is called symptoms. And there are about 500 and odd symptoms. There are about 500 to 600 signs, and about 2,500 lab tests, and about 500 images. These are all finite data sets. Bringing in the data set, the doctor will make the diagnosis. And today, a software in a mobile phone can make that happen. Why I strongly feel healthcare has to become safer? Because in the pursuit of making healthcare safer, we will make healthcare accessible and affordable. According to the British Medical Journal, the medical error is the 4th commonest cause of death in US. You can just imagine what it is in the rest of the world. Now, why is it so complicated to make this a digital tool? These digital tools called electronic medical records are very, very expensive. How expensive they are? They literally cost not millions, billions. One would have thought that after spending billions of dollars for the electronic medical record, doctors would love to use it. Unfortunately, doctors in the United States and most parts of the world, they hate the electronic medical records. And in US, EMR is the fourth commonest cause of physician burnout. Why that's the case? Because the people who develop the software do not understand what the doctor wants. Now, what do the doctor want? Doctors do not like the keyboard. They do not want to type. Unfortunately, God did not design the doctors to type. So they hate typing. If you create a EMR with the keyboard, they won't like it. It has to be on a touch. The EMR has to be very intuitive. If a typical $1 billion EMR in US gives you an instruction manual and expect the doctors to attend 76 hours of training before they can learn how to use the basics of the EMR. If you give an instruction manual with the EMR, doctors will never use it. Also, doctors want the EMR to be built on a mobile platform. Doctors don't like to see the desktop or the laptop because historically, doctors across the world look at the desktop 5 to 10 times in a day, but they look at their mobile phone 200 times in a day. So it is natural that whatever you design as a EMR for a better care of the patient, it's designed for the mobile platform. And across the world, I'm talking about 80% of the world's population, 80% of the hospital, over 80%, over 85%, hospitals across the world do not have a EMR because they cannot afford a EMR. So whatever EMR you create, it has to be affordable. So with that in mind, we started our journey more than 15, 18 years ago, and we spent millions and millions of dollars. At the end of the day, we had nothing in hand because we were trying to develop these applications with outsourcing the software services. But around 5 years ago, we realized that nobody can understand what we want. So we decided to have our own software division as part of our group. And we have over 120 software engineers working. And in a matter of 3 years, they created an amazing platform which our doctors enjoy using. So the hospital management system is called Atma, and it has a component called Adi, which is on a mobile platform. And there is an analytic tool called Meda. And for the outpatients, we have outpatient is a very complex EMR. We have Cura. So essentially, what we believe is that the EMR has to be interoperable. And we looked at the model in US. In US, there are over 600 electronic medical records, and none of them talk to each other. For the next 100 years, they will not talk to each other. And it is very difficult to make EMRs to interact with each other because of the various business interest or personal interest. So we thought, leave the interoperability, create an application in their mobile, in the patient's phone. What we created in the pilot stage is called NHCare, which can hold all the patient's record. Any patient in US or Europe, he has a right to take their medical record. We expect every patient to take their medical record and save it in their mobile phone. So mobile phone is with the patient all the time. And even at 2 o'clock at night, if he develops chest pain, if he goes to a hospital, he always goes with the mobile phone. So Because these days people forget their spouse, but they never forget their mobile phone. So this is the beauty of having all the medical records in their mobile phone. So all they have to do is with the click of a button, they can give it to transfer the entire data to the doctors, the doctors, and they will be able to take the right decision. So the essentially we have seen what would have taken 5 to 10 years for the society to embrace the technology. Like for example, telemedicine. Telemedicine in India started 17 years ago with the Indian Space Research Organization giving us the free satellite connection in our hospital. I personally treated more than 53,000 patients. But 17 years, it was illegal because the medical council did not legalize it. 3 weeks after the COVID onslaught, it became legal. And today, most of my patients see me online using their mobile phone. And these are not rich people. When I look at the background from where the patient is speaking from, I know who I am talking to. About a month ago, when we started the online telemedicine program of our own, around 3 months ago, about a month and a half ago, I saw a lady talking to me on her mobile phone and looking at the background of her thatch roof house with the stray dogs. She was living in a slum in eastern India, and she paid 500 rupees to see me online. And that is the day I told my managers that from now onwards, my fee is going to be 50 rupees, not 500 rupees, because 500 rupees was sufficient for her to buy the food for the entire family, at least for 2 weeks. So we always feel that technology is for the rich and the affordable. But believe me, technology gives the rich and affordable and educated people what they always had in a better form. But technology will give poor people what they can never dream of having. This lady living in remotest parts of the country, she has to spend at least few thousand rupees and at least 2 weeks to travel by train to reach Bangalore to see me. And today she is able to see me in her bedroom on a mobile phone. So this is the beauty of technology. The uh, the and the other technology we have invested is a transfer the robot for transfer shipping material between the hospitals and inside the hospital, because we believe infection has taught us that you should have less number of people working in the hospital. So what we have done is to think about a concept of a hospital where only doctors, nurses, and medical technicians work. And all the support staff, the receptionist, the finance department, HR department, they all work from home. And they not only support one hospital, they can support multiple hospitals. And this is the platform we are trying to develop. We also invested on a company which has built a fantastic telemetry device, which a tiny device on the patient's chest can give 5 to 6 parameters, which a nurse spends so much of time with each patient. Because in a COVID situation, we realize nurses are not very comfortable touching the patient every 4 hours, checking the blood pressure, pulse rate, temperature, oxygen saturation. So we just put the probe and all the data comes to our central monitor, to the doctor's mobile phone, real time. An analytic tool which we have used gives a risk score so that the doctors, nurses can concentrate on high risk patients. And uh, also nurses do not need to touch the patients. If they have to touch the patient, they are expected to do a procedure. For getting the data from the patient, they don't need to touch the patient. Now, our dream is that this software should be available to any hospital in the world. at a price what they can afford. Now, what is a price hospitals can afford? We want this entire software to be available to the hospitals at the price of one disposable plastic syringe per patient per day. Now, why we feel the price of a disposable plastic syringe is something affordable? Mainly because patients, when we do the costing of a procedure, we do not add the cost of a disposable plastic syringe. It is so small that it is pointless adding. So essentially, we believe that this software should be available to everyone virtually at a price what they can never dream of. So I would like to end my talk with a very clear message that the world's largest healthcare provider will have no beds. It is going to be a software. And in India, which is blessed with phenomenally skilled software engineers, passionate doctors, and outstanding hospitals, we are in a position to develop multiple of them, not one, multiple of these softwares across the country. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Most grateful.
Thank you, Davy. As always, I think you know how to bring our minds front and center. I think all of us can give a round of applause to Davy. I think it would be great. I think the joke I have, and Davy, you know, I'm a Gujarati guy lost in South India. So I'm going to ask you for a discount before you even talk about it for Dr. Mehta's to implement. And we've got Lalu here. So CMC Vellore will be in line. We'll be in line. So let's see who you can implement it in for a year from now.
All CAHO hospitals will be online.
Yeah. And all the CAHO hospitals, if we can implement it, that will be great data for us to improve so that we can save every life. Nobody should die at any time until it's time for them to be called above. And I think if we can make our lives, yours, mine, and everybody else around here, the nurses, the practitioners, just much better. And more importantly for the consumer, whether it's 50 rupees or 5 rupees, maybe someday we will get to 5 rupees with technology like yours and what some of the others will implement. So I think with that, Anna, I'll pass it back to you. Thanks a lot, Davy. Really appreciate your time. And I think you're in for a feast if you can stay on a bit longer to hear at least some of our panelists share. Davy, it's very hard to get doctors to implement technology, especially the EMR systems we're seeing today. And you're actually trying something because you got fed up of, I expect, what was out there. So you're designing it yourself. When you look at clinical decision support, so the next leap of faith past EMR, how do you think you're going to get your clinicians to have confidence in that? Because in fact, you're taking away a little bit of their power, right? You're standardizing a little bit. And I know this has been implemented in the NHS. So I'd first love to hear Davy's view and then maybe Shafi and then maybe Yusuf a little bit.
It's very simple. All we have done from the beginning, it is the doctors who created the EMR. Software engineers are just there to build it for them. And as the time passed by, doctors realized that software engineers know what they're doing, and they started relying more and more on them. So if the doctor is part of the whole system of building the EMR, they become part of it and they trust it and they want it to be more effective. That is the only way you will be able to win. If you build the software in a lab and give it to the doctors, they will not be part of it. And it's very hard to force the doctors to use it.
Great insight.